Well, how's everybody doing? Here again for another fireside chat, kind of enjoying that part of it. And as we continue in our gospel study through Luke, we've come to Luke chapter 18, verse 31. And tonight I want to go actually through into 19 a little bit. So let's pick up in Luke 18, beginning in verse 31. Where it says, "And taking the 12, Jesus said to them, 'See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise.' But they understood none of these things. This saying was hidden from them, and they did not grasp what was said." Jesus was clear about what was about to happen to him. He knew exactly the things that were going to be happening in the coming weeks and months. But his disciples, they didn't have a clue. Jesus had been studying the Old Testament since he was a young boy. And he knew what the Old Testament prophets had done and prophesied about him and how he would triumphantly ride on a donkey into Jerusalem in the book of Zechariah. He also knew about the betrayal of Judas mentioned in Psalm 41. The cross, Psalm 22, as well as Isaiah 53. He knew about his death and burial, according to Psalm 16. His resurrection, of course, in Matthew 12:40. And his ascension itself is prophesied in Psalm 24. Even his enthronement into glory was mentioned in Psalm 45. And then, of course, Jesus even realized that he would be a priest after the order of Melchizedek, as is found in Genesis chapter 14. But Jesus knew so much more than just the Old Testament prophecies. The Father had revealed so much of the plan to the Son. This is what he says. He says, for he will be delivered over to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him. On the third day, he will rise." He knew every detail, it seems like, about what was about to transpire. He knew he would be crucified by the Romans, they're the Gentiles, rather than being stoned by the Jews. You see, he knew the high priest and the chief priest who would arrest him, that they wouldn't have the authority to have him crucified. And they were afraid of the common Jew and what they might do if they did try to kill Jesus. And so they got Pilate to do the dirty work for them, and they had Pilate, the governor, one of the governors of the Roman Empire, to have him crucified. It's just amazing when you realize just how much detail Jesus knew about what was going to happen to him in the coming days. What was sad about the whole thing, though, was his disciples did not understand any of these things. In fact, it says because they were hidden from them. It was beyond their comprehension. It was beyond their belief. In fact, the more Jesus seemed to share, the less they understood. In verse 35 it says, "And Jesus drew near to Jericho. A blind man was sitting by the roadside begging, and hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. And they told him, 'Well, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by.' And so the blind man began crying out, 'Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me.' And those who were in the front rebuked him, telling him to be quiet. But he cried all the more, 'Son of David, have mercy on me.' And Jesus stopped, commanded him to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him, 'What do you want me to do for you?' And the blind man said, 'Lord, let me recover my sight.' And Jesus said to him, 'Recover your sight. Your faith has made you well.' And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God." Just a few geographical facts. First of all, Jericho was approximately 15 miles away from Jerusalem. The road from Jericho to Jerusalem was a very treacherous and dangerous road. Jericho was about 13 feet below sea level. Jerusalem was 2,600 feet above sea level. And so when you put those two together, you have about 3,600 feet rise from Jericho to Jerusalem. That highway, that north-south highway that went from Jericho to Jerusalem, twisted and turned through high cliffs and dangerous ravines. Anyway, as Jesus approached Jericho, a blind beggar confronted him. Now the blind man did not realize Jesus was coming. He couldn't see anything. But then when the crowd passed by him and there was a great commotion, he asked him, what's all the commotion about? What's going on? And they told him, well, Jesus is coming. Jesus is passing by. Jesus had quite a reputation at this point. I'm sure the blind beggar had heard maybe of some of his miracles. And so he began to cry out himself, Son of David, a term of endearment, a term of respect, of Messiah, the Son of David. He says, have mercy on me. And those in the crowd said, shh, they tried to quiet him down. Be quiet, be quiet. And so he cried out even louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. Well, Jesus heard the man. And he had compassion, and he stopped. And he commanded that the blind man be brought to him. And he looked at the blind man and he says, what do you want me to do for you? And the blind man responded, Lord, make me to be able to see again. And Jesus commanded, he said, recover your sight. Your faith has made you well. And as it's always such a beautiful thing for me to see, it says immediately, instantly, Jesus healed this man's blindness, and the man could see. It wasn't a lag in this miracle. It was instantaneous. Jesus simply spoke, and the next instant, this man, who had been blind for who knows how long, maybe his whole life, the man could see. It says that the man followed Jesus. Now, I believe that this man was healed in two ways. First, he was healed physically of his blindness. But secondly, I believe that Jesus healed him of his spiritual sin as well. Because it says he followed Jesus. In fact, it says that he actually glorified God because of what Jesus had done for him. Of course, the people that were there that saw this great miracle began praising God as well. Now let's turn on to Luke chapter 19 and pick up in one of my favorite stories, beginning in verse 1. Jesus entered Jericho, was passing through, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up, and he said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So Zacchaeus hurried and came down and received him joyfully. Now when they saw it, that is the crowd, they grumbled, saying, he has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Now, it looks like Jesus is going to just pass through this